So, I fancy myself a living reincarnation of Sherlock Holmes. Wait, he's a fictional character. I aspire to be like Sherlock Holmes. Wait, he's a fictional character. I don't. I like Sherlock Holmes a lot. There you go. And so I've often thought of many of the things I do or the cases that I do as cases and people as cases. I don't know. It's kind of like easier. Everything's a case. It's also in a file system that's inside my head. That's like this huge system of thousands of files that are cases that are sometimes interconnected and have strings between them. But inside my head, it's a thing. Okay. So one of those cases that I felt like I've been thinking about. Got a couple that are in my mind presently, but one that's always bothered me, just gets to me. Still setting. Donda West. So, for those who don't know, Kanye West had a mom, Donda, and unbeknownst to maybe too many people, she was a force. She was somebody who was like kind of known to me before Kanye. Like when Kanye came out, it was this Donda West's son. It was how I heard about it, right? Like, in the sense that she was kind of well known to black women, black female spaces as like this really big educator, somebody who was doing a lot of awesome work in Chicago areas, who was at, I think, University of Chicago or Bata or Champaign-Urbana, one of those kind of Illinois kind of universities, but was like really cool. And then, I knew people who had known her in Los Angeles, and she was doing stuff when Kanye was coming up. She was really engaged with the black community. Like, this is my son, this is us. Like, we're here, we're going to be part of your world. Like, we're really about how can we be helpful and supportive, right? And it was like, this is real, this is really cool. And so when she passed away, I happened to at the same time be working in Beverly Hills, but I was living with my grandparents, and so I was traveling through an area like in LA. If you were to take the bus like I was taking the bus, the buses operate on like kind of big major corridors, right? Like, so if you ever get lost in LA, you could like walk to the biggest next street and find a bus, and then it could take you out of there, right, or wherever you are. You can find a way to exit it and get someplace else if you get to a major artery kind of Los Angeles. So I was taking kind of main streets and taking buses north to Beverly Hills from my grandparents' house in Inglewood. So it was like almost like a 2 hour way, 2 hours each way during traffic and stuff. And one of my stops happened to have been on like the same corner as the location where Donda West had went through some surgery, which contributed to her loss of life. And I had, before that happened, been like super paranoid about like what I had been seeing coming, like, because I was coming on this bus at like, kind of standard times, like, well, kind of different times. So these people had me coming at different times, like based off whatever they wanted me to come. It wasn't like a 9 to 5 job. It was a part-time gig. And so I was coming at different times. And I was seeing like the same people, like people coming out of this shop of like, it was like it kind of didn't look right, but it had all this stuff that was like beauty and like we could fix you and that type of things in their windows. And I was seeing black women, very obvious black women coming out like limping and looking not so good. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I've been hearing a little bit more about surgery and things are going on. I'm concerned. And it was an Asian run shop. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And I didn't do anything, said nothing. And, I just felt like, and she died and I heard about it. I was like, oh no. And they said, oh yeah, it happened there. And I was like, not that place. I was like, that has happened multiple times at that same place. And people were like, yeah, I know, but who's going to do anything? Especially because, we already know who the guy is. Does he live here? Is he American? Like, nobody really even investigated it. And it was like shocking. It was like, you have a superstar, like a huge star, and their parent goes down. And their parent was awesome. Like the best. Like literally kept them like, really did. And like was commanded a room and stuff, And then like nobody investigated it. Like nobody followed up on that. So something that for me, it's on my list of things to do, to further investigate or try to try to better understand what happened there and why the person who engaged in that medical procedure with Kanye's mom never saw any, accountability or some real repercussions. It looked like, there was, and my concern as well is that place is still going. I believe it's on Vermont, right? So I'm a little concerned. Might be on the way to Vermont. I've got to go check. I was on the bus. I wasn't driving back then. Not like I paid attention to the streets while I'm on the bus. You know what I'm saying? But it was one of those things where when I realized those places were the same and like he had basically shut down after it happened. So I was like, okay. And then I heard it was back up. So I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how often is this still the case where, especially within people of color communities, people can do surgeries or do medical things, and also for poor white people, I've heard really just terrible horror stories of people, accessing care that's really not, that has no accountability because we can't afford better, right? Because we're too poor, right? So we can't go to the hospital because we know that's going to be $20,000. Whereas if we go to the urgent care, it's not, right? And so I think it's really important for us to kind of, ask those type of questions about, is this fair? Does it make a lot of sense? Right? Like why people are dying on illicit surgeries without any investigation, including celebrities' moms. And if you had any hint of freaking empathy for Kanye West, could it be that, he had suffered some lack of accountability and it must have been really, really tough. So my heart goes out to him, his family, and everybody who loved Donda. And there was a lot of people from my recollection. So it was something that I always saw in common between the Kanye West and Kim Kardashian was that they had really solid family backgrounds, and I believe that their kids will have really just amazing, amazing futures with the grandparents that I knew them to have. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think it would be great if we could go back in time and maybe you can't change stuff, but could you know what happened more and make it so that like those things can like change the future for other people, maybe a little bit. That'd be the best thing. I'm not calling for witch hunts or anything like that. I'm actually just thinking about what are the type of policy and procedural changes that can happen, like forcing folks that do medical procedures to have ambulance services on call for certain surgeries, or things that actually can make a huge difference that are reasonable to ask small business owners to do or their insurers, right? That this is stuff that is workable for us to come to a conclusion on without having to lose so many more people to things that are unnecessary that could be resolved with a more extensive medical intervention, right? If we have a hospital, right? If you're doing certain procedures in a hospital, right? That's going to make it a lot easier if there's something that goes wrong versus, it was a 1 in 1,000 chance, but it happened 5 times this year. So I definitely I'm hoping people are really thinking about that. If they're thinking about pursuing those type of surgeries and, what has happened to Kanye's mom and other people, again, who are not doing anything too extreme. Nothing, but how often is that when you're a person who doesn't have as much money, who doesn't have as much access, and this was many years ago too, before Kanye was before he was Gap Kanye, so, but I do pray for her and pray for an outcome, along with a couple other cases.